we have you recapitalize the what we have done last week. We discussed basically the four main areas where the bank in industry analysis, industry versus your bank, and the financial crisis and trust and confidence, clients and confidence management. Now, under banking industry analysis, what we have discussed last week, we discussed about all the banking activities. So banking branch operation need to conduct under business environment. So we call that particular business environment is VUCA, business environment. So what you mean by we mean the volatility, U mean the uncertainty, C mean the complexity, and A mean the ambiguity. So, so we have to conduct our branch operation under such changing environment. That is what we call VUCA environment. We discussed last week lengthily on that. Then we move in to discuss basically the global and local market position, as well as the economy, as well as the banking industry. Now we discuss the economy because the bank activity or the bank operation is a backbone of any economy, for that matter, for any country, any market. So we discuss our economy in the terms of this pandemic situation. The economy in developed countries also have a contractual expansion, and then as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we discussed 3.7% GDP increase from 2015 to 2019, and during the 2019 is moving to 3.1, and then 2020 the first half only 1.6, and the second half is not, but according to the new budget proposal, the country is expected 4% increase in 2021 to 2025. Right, that's the local economic situation. And then we discuss about the what is the banking industry situation, and we discuss in the world globally. We have around 30,000 odd banks, different type of banks, and we consist of around 150 trillion asset base in the world market, and also we discussed the largest 25 banks in the world, 4 banks from China oriented banks, right, which consist of around 25 trillion US dollar, all these 25 banks, right? And then the more interesting, we discussed the local market situation in Sri Lankan banks, and we discussed Sri Lanka total market asset base is around 12.5 trillion Sri Lankan rupees, and deposits something called 9.2 trillion, and then the loan and advances which consist around 7.9 trillion. That is our total local banking market in terms of assets, in terms of deposits, and in terms of loan and advance. Usually the asset is growing every year, ranging from 12 to 15. That is a market growth rate, as well as the deposit is growing around 14 to 17, and the loan and advances is growing around 15 to 19%. But in 2020, the loan growth that was estimated just around 6.4%. That means when you're compared for the last couple of years, 2020, the loan growth is not as expected. It's around 6.4%. That is the global local market position, banking position. Right. Then we discuss who are the key players in the Sri Lankan market, and we have around um, 29 banks in Sri Lanka. Out of that, we have licensed specialized bank. We have around six, and licensed commercial bank we have around 23. So that's altogether 29 banks. So these 29 banks are basically state banks, which consist of 7 banks, and then we have commercial banks, private commercial banks. We have around private banks 12, and we have 10 foreign banks in Sri Lanka. So altogether we have around uh, 29 banks in Sri Lanka, and also we have around 39 finance companies in Sri Lanka and 4 financial leasing companies. So those are non-banking, but we are talking about the banks. So the bank population or the bank players are basically 29 banks. These are the key players in the market. And then we discussed last week how we classify the bank in Sri Lanka, and we discussed the Sri Lankan banking market is oligopolistic market. That means a large number of small and medium banks, and there are some few large banks. That is what you call oligopolistic market condition. So bank Sri Lanka can be classified into two based on the asset base as well as the capital adequacy ratio. And we discussed in length last time. Based on assets, Sri Lankan banks are usually categorized into large, medium, and small. Right, the large mean above 500 billion. So and then we have medium size between 200 to 500, and then less than 200 we have around small banks, right? And then we may also bank classified according to the per capita, capital adequacy ratio. We call them as domestically systematically uh, important banks and domestically non-systematically important banks. So we have 4 type of domestically important banks. Those are we call Bank of Ceylon, Commercial Bank, People's Banks, and the Federal National Bank. Those are domestically important banks. All other banks are not domestically important banks. So these domestically important banks and non-domestically important banks are categorized based on the capital adequacy ratio. Basically, usually it is 13.5. We call bucket 1, and bucket 2 we have around 14 point, more than 14%. That's two banks, BOC and commercial banks, and 13.5 we categorize them as People's Bank and HMB. All other banks need to be maintained minimum of 12.5, but under these circumstances they have reduced that percentage a little lower than that. So this is how bank classify in Sri Lanka, right? So then we discuss about the profitability in the banking sector. Usually banks are enjoying a little higher profits, and during the last December budget, as we are well aware, our taxes was bring down from 28 to 24, and completely eliminated the nation trust tax and specific debt repayment levy also removed last week, the last year, right? It will continue. So we have some things to earn, right? And then because of the COVID-19, so the central bank's guideline, banks in Sri Lanka introduced a debt moratorium. So postponed, we discussed last week. Moratorium is not a cancellation, but it's a postponement, right? So debt moratorium, so that will impact the bank's profitability to some extent. We discussed all things in detail last week. Then we are maintaining a low interest rate environment, and also central bank, if you look at it, the reason direction by the central bank, and the central bank was requested all the banks to have an interest cap of 7% for mortgage-backed housing loans and things like. They have given some specific interest rate. So we are working on a very, very low interest rate environment. So then risk of higher NPL, because of the high NPL, in 2019, our inflation or NPL rate is going for in 2019 is around 4.7, and then during this year, the first 6 months, that was increased to 5.4. But it's vary from bank to bank. This is an industry, but certain banks is more than 6%, 7%, 8%. But averagely, the bank NPL ratio is 5.4, right? So that impacted the bank's profitability. And also we know the impairment cost associated with the application of SLFRS 9. So this also impact the profitability, but this government, I mean the new budget, will they take into account the SLFRS factor into account during this year. And we have noted all things are the bad side, but to improve our profitability, we discussed the CASA trend. What do you mean by a CASA? Capital, current account, and the savings account balances, and it is increasing. So that's a good sign. If the CASA increasing mean, so improve your profitability. So why CASA increase? We discuss in greater length. What is the reason for increase the CASA? Noted that the difference between term deposit or the fixed deposit and the savings deposits, our margin is very slow, so people tend to keep the money in the savings account. So we discussed in length in 2007-8, we had around 40% CASA trend, and it has come down to 30, and you noted from 2020 onwards there is a rising CASA trend. So it's moving to 32%, something like that. That's the banking. So that's a good sign for improve our profitability of the banking sector. So that also we discuss in greater length. If you have not attended or not followed the last week, you can go through the previous recorded version, and you can learn how CASA trend impacted the bank's profitability, so industry profitability, right? And then again we discussed the new budget proposal 2021, how it impact the profitability. So we discussed the two things important for banks. One is 0.25 special insurance fund, that little bit the cost, and also some capital and dividend concession for the bank who invested in our bank, generate $100 million, so in overseas or in the for US dollar. So banks exempted from some taxes and dividends. So those are some of the things we contribute to the profitability of the banking sector, that what we have discussed in last week in all these factors in great length, right? And then we discuss the industry, that the banking industry information, and we discussed how it impact your bank. So what is your position, your bank with compared with the industry? What is the share you are taking from the industry? So for an example, say, so the industry loan portfolio, is around 7.9 trillion US in rupee terms, 7.92 um, uh, in 2020 middle. So what is your bank's total loan portfolio? So that's right. And also we noted that, and you noted the gold on or the pawning business in Sri Lanka. Um, it is as at September 30th this year, it has gone to 241 billion. Say for an example, the total phone for phoning portfolio in September 30th, in September 30th, 2020 is estimated in the total market, the banking industry is comes to around 241 billion. Right now, you can think your bank, what is your pawning portfolio? Right? You say, for an example, your total portfolio is around 50. So that means you are out of 241, you are 50. So what is your percentage? You are earning around 40% of market share. Right? So that is how why we need to learn about the industry, and that you're compared with your bank in terms of profit, in terms of deposits, in terms of asset base, right? So this is the total market. What is your bank market? And coming back from your bank to your branch, say your bank is having asset base of, say for an example, um, 400 billion for an example. How much your branch is having, how your bank is contributing to your bank total asset base, and how your bank contributing to the banking industry asset base. So likewise you can compare uh, industry versus your bank and your branch, right? So having understood only the industry, you can compare your bank. From your bank total asset base, you can think how much the asset your branch contribute. It's like that. Okay, so that is why we need to understand the industry and the bank and the branch. So then we discuss in detail. So what do you mean by a financial crisis, and what do you mean by a trust and confidence? So as well you are aware, so banking business are purely based on trust and confidence. So we discuss what happened when we lost the trust and confidence of the public. Now, what happened? We discussed the incidents called the depositor run, and people are rushed to your branch and ask the money what you have depositors. So it will not good for the stability of the financial system, and that is the depositor run. And also another way you can think about the electronic run mean the customers have lost the trust and confidence about your bank. They try to withdraw money electronically, and depositor run mean the customers physically move into the bank and ask. So these we can experience all these things in 2007-8 in the western part of the world. And in Sri Lanka also, you noted there are some incidents happened during that time with this Selinco uh, issue, and Ceylon Bank had that sort of problem, right? So we discussed in detail on that last week. Then we moving to the client's confidence management, and under the client's confidence management, we discuss the present status of the financial customer protection, why it is important, and then we discuss what is the issues, of financial system, financial industry, and what are the present status of financial customer protection, what initiatives taken by the government or the regulator protect the innocent customers. And we further discuss what are the several issues that make financial services different when we compare with the other businesses. One factor we get, and the financial business are sold money, others are sold goods for money, but financial services are sell goods, sell financial, sell money as a financial instrument. Then, the when you are compared with other businesses, the financial uh, sector or financial industry is highly regulated compared with other businesses. And another point we discussed, the customers are sit on the both sides of the value chain. One time is a borrower and one time is a depositor. And the information, and it is very difficult. It always is asymmetric and difficult to understand. Then what are the key issues driving these issues financial services different? One is the technical nature of the financial uh, businesses, and will very difficult to grasp the average person. For that, we need to develop the financial literacy of the customers of Sri Lanka. Right. So then we all things we discuss, right? And also we discuss ways to increase customer confidence. And we discuss the importance of um, some initiatives taken uh, by the Sri Lankan regulators to improve the customer confidence, not only regulator, but also your bank. Now, one factor is SMS. So the moment you do a transaction through use of your credit card or withdraw the money from your debit card from the ATM, you get a SMS message you have done a transaction. There are sometimes we call a missed call if you want to confirm your balances in your credit card or deposits. So you can call miss call to a particular bank, and the bank will send you a SMS like that. Then there are a lot of initiatives have taken, and introducing lot of mm, some safety precautions to protect the customer, right? And all other things. And then a central bank also introduced deposit insurance and liquidity support scheme, financial ombudsman, customer charter, and the central bank come up with risk management techniques, capital adequacy ratio, liquidity control mechanism. So all these things are looking after bank as well as the customer. If the bank protect, and automatically the customer's money was safeguarded, right? So these are some of the client's confidence initiative uh, taken by bank as well as the regulators. Those are the things what we have discussed last week in more detail. These are the four main areas what we have discussed. Now you noted we discussed in data net banking industry only, which I summarize now, why it is important to know all these things and to compare with your bank and with your branch. And then what is financial crisis, trust and confidence, and clients confidence management and ethics. So that part we have not discussed, the ethics parts. So today we are going to discuss ethics, right? So a lot of students in banking in at the moment in the IBSL exams, the ethics part is not going to cover. So So in the new syllabus which are proposed to come, maybe latter part of 2021 or maybe 2022, uh, uh, the the new syllabus is going to incorporate it. New subject is going to incorporate your IBSL intermediate and diploma. It's called ethics. But so we are going to touch upon today, what do you mean by an ethics in banking, right? We are going to discuss in details. And then the next part is, today we are going to cover the future of bank branches. What do you think about, we need the branches anymore, whether we don't want to have a branch? So branchless banking and branch banking, we need a branch or not? So we are going to discuss today, we need the branch bank operation anymore? So these are the two areas we are going to discuss today. So even though it is a small two topics, we are going to cover a lot of things. I don't know whether you have learned about the ethics and you know about the ethics in the banking. So let's discuss a little bit of ethics and future of bank branches today. Right. So therefore, so we are going to discuss today the first topics in your handout. Two is having ethics. Right. So what is ethics? So these are the areas we are going to cover today in the balance period. So what is ethics? We are going to discuss in detail. Then what is code of ethics? So you, even though you may not familiar, you already there. What is code of ethics, right? We're going to discuss that. Then what are the, as a professional banker, what are the fundamental principles you need to comply with as a professional banker? So what do you mean by academic and the professional? So what is the difference between academic and the professional student? So academic students, we are usually learn the theory part. The professional study, we are going to use the theory plus experience in the real life situation. So that is why you call a professionals, right? So what are the fundamental principle a banker need to comply? So we are going to discuss that. Then, so what are the ethical threats? What are the ethical threats you are going to face when you are perform when you're carrying out or you're performing your banking job? So what are the threats you're going to come? What are those threats and all these things we are going to discuss. And then we are moving to discuss a little bit of what is whistleblowing policy, right? Okay. Then we are going to discuss what is unethical issues. What do you mean by an unethical issues, right? And then what are the causes of people or the bankers become performing unethical behavior? Why you perform your job in unethical manner, right? What are the reasons? Huh? What are the causes? And these are the things we are going to discuss under ethics, right? So we'll take now one by one, right? We try to learn, and in fact, I want to tell you, this ethics part is, you, to my knowledge, you are not covered any others, any other short-term course or long-term course carried out by the bank, IBSL in your not to in details, from we try to cover that part, right? So what is ethics, right? What do you mean by an ethics? Okay, ethics refers to moral principle. So moral principles mean right or wrong. So moral meaning is right or wrong. So ethic refers to moral principle that governs a person's behavior or conducting of an activity, right? The principles of right and wrong that individuals use to make choices to guide their behavior. So now important things you need to understand. What is right and wrong? Now take for an example, in Sri Lankan law, so marriage, legal marriage of same sex is prohibited, right? But certain countries, the marriage of two same sex are permitted. Now, country, I can quote you. One is the latest country who got that facility is in New Zealand, right? UK also want to do that, but that was not passed in the parliament, right? But the New Zealand, there are some 14 countries are legally permitted to marry same sex. So where is in Sri Lanka? That is wrong. But some countries it is right. Right? Okay. Another example. So think about the prostitution. Now Sri Lanka is prostitution is wrong or bad, totally. But some other countries are allowed. So where are the right and wrongs that individual used to make the choice, guide their being? So ethics mean the principles that governs a person behavior or the conducting of activity, right? Now if you really look at ethics are therefore principles and values and individual uses to cover these activities and behavior. Ethics are certain principles and values on individual uses to guide individual uses to govern these activities and decisions. So therefore, ethics are about what individuals or groups believe is right. What altogether you think is believe right and what they believe is wrong. So therefore, ethics is a guide given to you to behave in a quick way, right? Okay, I think you now understood what you mean by an ethics. So ethics again, it is the way how governs the person behavior or conducting of her activity. Now, if you really look at it, there are three types of ethics. You say there are three types of ethics. You can classify ethics into two things. One is the societal ethics. So, what do you mean by the societal ethics? The ethics that are established, sorry, by society are usually written into the country's law, state law or the provincial law. Now, say there are some laws are there, so you need to behave in such a way. In Sri Lanka, also we have some personal laws, right? So, based on the society are written into your state or your provincial. Now, example, say for an example, murder, rape, uh, embezzlements, loitering, so all that. Most people taught them from an early age. So everybody from the socially, you know how to behave. That is the first one we call social ethics, societal ethics. The second type of ethics, we call them as a personal ethics. Now, there are some people beside the laws of the society. Each person is guided by a set of personal principles that gives them a sense of what is fair and unfair, right and wrong. So your personal ethics that will be guided from your religious choice, maybe the political choice, or maybe the family choice. Right? Now remember ethics is full of choices, right? Remember that. So personal ethics may develop because your school, right? Maybe your political party, or maybe your religious, or maybe from family, right? We people are saying, yeah, we Latino on the family again. So we are expecting a personal ethics. So he may carry out certain good qualities, right? So how you conduct your activity or behavior. So because you bring with your religious, political, or whatever you call personal ethics. Third ethics is called the professional ethics. Now, that is a code of ethics usually established by the members of a profession. Now, bankers, accountants, the engineers, whoever you call it, uh, is a members of a profession. Now, all these professionals, lawyers, right, is to help define and they encourage to conduct his businesses or his activity based on to his profession, right? So therefore, professional ethics, we are falling to this category. So therefore, ethics can be into three. One is from societal ethics, second, personal ethics, and third one, the professional ethics, right? So we discuss what this mean by a ethic, and there are three types of ethics we discuss: uh, the societal ethics, personal ethics, and the professional ethics. I think you now have an idea about what is ethics, right? Okay, having understood what is ethics and the type of ethics, now we move into what is code of ethics. That is important. Now, think about this. Deciding what is right or wrong is not always easy or clear cut. What is wrong? What is right? I told you, so certain countries, certain things are right, but for some other countries, those things are wrong. So, how to define, how to understand, how to clear cut all these things? So, therefore, many organizations and many professional organizations, they develop their own code of ethics. They develop their own code of ethics. Now, what do you mean by a code of ethics? The code of ethics is a collection of principles that intend to guide decision making by members of the organization. So collections of principle, so that is intended to guide the decision making by members of the organization, right? Members of the organization. So you as bankers, what is the code of conduct you are having, or code of ethics your organization is having? So every bank is having a code of conduct, or sometimes we call code of ethics. So what is the principal objective of code of conduct or code of ethics? Is to provide a general outline of the standards of professional and ethical conduct that all employees are expected to conform to, and to ensure that they are aware of the standards of personal integrity that are required when conducting both your businesses and their own. Right. Now, what is code of conduct there? So all bankers, once you obtain the job from a bank, so I told last week, you need to sign two types of documents. What are the two types of documents? One is the secrecy. So you are not going to divert any information. Second one is code of conduct or code of ethics. So you need to adhere to that, right? Why it is important? Why it is important to you need to adhere to this code of conduct? You sign. So that is what we call a customer charter. So once you go for induction training, so every bank must have given you some small piece of or maybe booklet code of conduct. So as a bank person or as a bank professional, so how you going to perform your job, or how are you going to conduct your businesses? So that is what you call code of conduct or code of ethics. So this is the way you need to be. Because why? Because deciding what is right or wrong is not always easy or clear cut. That is why a lot of professional organizations introduce a thing called code of ethics. Right? Now let's look at it now. This is the ethics. So because of the downward spiral of ethics in business today, now it is no longer simply a matter of product being trustworthy, but you must convince your clients that you are trustworthy. You are trustworthy, right? Because then only customer believe you, clients believe you and your organization, and that's build up the banking business. So banking business to be there, you need to have a better understanding, better relationship, and a better trust and confidence. Then only the banking business is taking place. Right? Now, remember, so therefore, banking is a business based on integrity and mutual trust, not like any other business. Banking is a business based on integrity and mutual trust. And why? Because the bankers are deal with other people's money. Now you noted that. So from why we call now the other businesses, say for an example, a particular company. The company is basically based on the shareholders' money. But who is the main owner of the banks? The public or your customers. That is why customers are primary than stakeholders in the banks. So the banks deal with other people's money. So therefore, trust and confidence and behaving in such a manner, an ethical manner, is important. Right. So, but despite the fact of all these factors, but bankers have quite a bad reputation these days, right? And in fact, some statistics show that financial services are the least trusted industry at the moment. But this, you are supposed to be a trust. Now, you really look at it from this draft about the business ethics from 1950s to early 2000s and now 20s. Now, this gap is increasing, right? Okay, so what is actual business ethics? But society's expectation is very high, but your performing is less, and there is this gap is widening up. That is due to the ethical issues, right? You noted. And the financial world has in recent time, you noted, that's come with temptation, greed, temptation, short-termisms, that we are looking for a shorter terms, and you get in bonuses and hard sell, right? You're concentrating rather than a long spectrum. You look at it a very narrow spectrum. Now, what happened as a result? Many people think that the financial world does not care about ethical banking, right? Because everybody is go for profits without taking into account the customers. So therefore, banking requires the highest ethical standards, right? Remember, so Because why? We are dealing with the customers' money, we are dealing with the public money. So while we are earning profits, right, we need to look after customers, and we need to carry out the businesses in a profit, in a fair manner, socially acceptable manner. So you see some of the banks have fined from their regulators if they are not conducted their business in a ethical manner. So leading banks in the world, now you noted some of the fines they have done by their regulators because they have not conduct their businesses in a regularly manner. So you noted, if you really look at it from the highest compliance fine history, if you really look at it, some, not only banks, right? New York Presbyterian Hospital and Columbia University, they have fined 4.8 US dollar million in 2019 because so uh, some information is leak about the customers, about the hospitals, right? And these are some of the example I have quoted. It is not in your handout, right? And then 5.5 million advocate healthcare, 5.55 millions in fines, larger settlements, violation of HIPPA, right? Then another one is called Rio Tinto, 27 million, right? UK Financial Conduct Authority charge mining giant Rio Tinto not falling in line with certain compliance required. Then you say the Deutsche Bank, 163 million charge. Uh, not carried out the proper customer due diligence. Then Citigroup's another leading bank in 2011, Security and Exchange Commission charge 285 million, right? Harm investors. So the Goldman Sachs, so there's another financing organization, right? And they charge penalty for fine for misled the investors in subprime mortgage product, right? So likewise, there are a lot of financial, even for Google, 12.7 billion in fine for manipulations of search result, making the target fine in US history, right? You see, even the large organizations in the world are not only the financial institution, other organizations are not carried out their business in an ethical manner. As a result, the regulators play some fine. So these are some of the example I have quoted. How imposed carried out your business in an ethical manner. So remember, it is not about profit at any cost, but about the right profits. So it is about building trust, right? Banks need to understand. It is not about targets or hard selling at any cost, but about right selling. What do you mean by a hard selling? Mean you are pressurizing customers to buy your product, right? So that is what you call hard selling. But you have to go for right selling, mean for soft selling, right? And it is about the long term and not the short term, right? So we may need to look at more a longer term than a short term, right? So, okay. So that is about ethical banking, right? So remember, when you carried out your business, you need to earn profits, but you need to earn profits in an ethical manner. So that is totally about ethical banking, right? And remember, and in the long term, the most ethical banks will survive in the market and make more profit than unethical, right? Unethical, a short term, remember, cannot survive in the market for long term. So there are a lot of benefits can bank take if you behave in a socially responsible and ethical manner, right? So therefore, ethics are the difference between what you could do and what is right to do. So you can do a lot of things, but what is the right? So that is the basic we call them as ethics. So banks therefore believes in total compliance with the letter and the spirit of all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. That is why a regulator introduced the position called a compliance officer for your organization. What is his role? The compliance role. And he need to ensure that your organization must carry out your business activities based on applicable laws, rules, and regulations. So one of the objective of the compliance officer, the duty of the compliance officer, to educate your board of directors as well as your senior officers. What are the new rules and regulations, right? And he is responsible, and that is why he compliance officer directly reporting to the board subcommittee, risk management committee, right? Why he's play an important role. He is need to ensure that your businesses of your bank is carried out according to the prevailing rules, regulations, and laws in Sri Lanka, as well as your own internal control procedures. Right now, you see how important the ethical aspects of appointing your compliance. Right? Okay. So now coming back again to for your employee code of conduct. So we talk about why this for employee code of conduct and the direction 8 of 2011. So we introduce the regulator introduced the customer charter. So banks to design a code of conduct to achieve the following objective. So safeguarding the interests of the customers, building up a healthy relationship between customers and banks, and improving the customer confidence in the banking sector, promote and ensure stability in the banking sector. So these are the objective is having the employee code of conduct. That is what you call customer chart. And last week we discussed the key areas covered in the customer charter. And just for your benefit, I just put it again, right? So customer informations and understanding of product, you need to provide all the information to the customers. What are the products you are selling? For preferred language, basically English, Tamil, or Sinhala. And you must create awareness about and give full knowledge to the customer what are the terms and conditions of product. So what do you mean by the terms and condition mean? Say for an example, what are the procedure you need to follow, what are the documents you need to have to open an account and things like that. Then we discussed the compensation. So if something goes wrong, what are the compensation you mean giving to your customers? And protection from bank agent. So if you are appointing a bank agent, protection. So what things you need to follow when you're appointing bank agent to do your job, right? And then you must establish a complaint measure and a relief mechanism of your organization. If a customer has a problem, how to make a complaint. And then we discuss about the special attention and care for needy customers, what actions you need to take to protect your senior citizens, things like that. And also the customer charter talk about not only your code of conduct, but also customers' code of conduct when you're dealing with banks, the customers' obligations towards the bank. So these things we discussed in a greater length last week under customer charter. Right. Now we are moving to the important area. So suppose you as a professional banker, uh, what are the fundamental principles so you need to adhere to carried out being a professional banker? Suppose if you are a ethical banker, what are the professional fundamental principles you need to carried out? So we can identify main five principles. One is integrity. We are going to discuss in details, right? One is integrity. Second one is objectivity. Third, professional competence and due care. Confidentiality and the professional behavior. These are the five fundamental principles you as a professional banker shall comply with, right? So you suppose you are a banker, you are a professional banker, when you carried out your business in ethical manner, so you need to adhere to these fundamental principles. Now let's look at it. What are these fundamental principles? So-called integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional. See whether all these things are there, you as a professional bank, right? So these are the things you are expected. When all these fundamental principles are you are adapting, that way you become a professional banker. So therefore, your bank is performing in ethical manner, right? If you are not adhere to these fundamental principles, you are not a ethical bank or a professional bank. Now let's look at it. What do you mean by an integrity? Let's look at it now. What do you mean by an integrity, right? Okay, so let's look at it. What do you mean by an integrity? Integrity means as a banker to be straightforward and honest. That is simple, right? When you carried out your businesses as a professional banker, to be a straightforward and honest. That's the important thing, right? Second one, and to be honest in all professionals and business relationships you are having, right? Okay. Second one, so fair dealing and truthfulness, right? That's the important thing. Fair dealing and truthfulness. Now, whatever you do when you're dealing is to be very fair and very truthfulness. Now, let's look at some example. So, you are not to be associated with any form of communications or report where materially false, incomplete, containing misleading statements or provide recklessly. So sometimes, as a banker, so you may a banker, some people needs a letter from you, some confirming your balances, right? There are a lot of incidents reported in the banks. You are giving high inflated information, so depositors bases and all, to some references, right? So you as a professional banker, you need to maintain integrity, right? Then you become ethical bank, right? First one, integrity. What do you mean by integrity? This is a fundamental principle. You need to be work as a professional banker, and then only you become an ethical banker, right? Straightforward, honest, all professional and business relationship, fair dealing and truthfulness, and not to associate with any form of communications or report where materiality false, incomplete, containing misleading statements and things like that. Then we move into the second point, that is what you call objectivity. So objectivity means to do not allow bias. You're not biased to somebody. You won't take because of, say, you're a manager for a bank branch. So you're not biased because of another person. Give some favorable treatment to person who is in your school, or maybe is your relatives relative, or maybe your caste, or maybe your school, maybe your religion, or something like that, right? And this is, that's conflicts of interest. So what do you mean by a conflict of interest? Conflict of interest mean, say for an example, right? So I'll give you an example for conflict of interest. Say you as a director of the bank. You are director of the bank. Now, uh, you also own, say for example, you also own AC company, selling company, air conditioner selling company. So you are also a bank director, and also you are having a AC selling company. So if you say you are a owner of part of the Abbas, for example, also the director of a bank. Now there's a tender comes to your bank to take AC plant for your branch network. So they also, the Abbas, so your company also applied for tender. You also applied it. Now, as a bank director, suppose you are in the tender committee, what is your objective should be as a bank director? Get the good quality, minimum price AC for your branches. That is your interest about your organization. But we as some having some ownership of the AC manufacturing company, you are trying to influence the banks to buy your company's products. And then this comes the conflicts of interest. Because of you having secondary motive, you are going to lose the primary things. There's a conflict between primary and the secondary. So that is the conflict of interest. So therefore, you need to be objectivity. So you are not involving in this type of conflicts of interest situation. You may move out from the tender procedure in that case, right? Okay, next one. So undue influence of others to override the professional law business judgment. Now, in banks, even though we are telling we have a lot of issues like this, undue influence of others to override professional law business judgment. So your boss will tell you, okay, give this loan to, right? So that is the objective. You say you are as a bank manager, or maybe at the head office credit officer, or maybe the credit AGM or whoever, you tell your branch manager to process these loans. So that means others to override your professional or business judgment, right? So those are objectivity. So you are not behave in that way. So therefore, bankers need to ensure that their professional or business judgment is not compromised because of bias or conflict of interest. Just because of you're known to him, maybe you have some conflict of interest. So your professionals and business judgment not to be compromised. That is the objectivity. You as a banker, so you need to adhere to this fundamental principle. Then you become a ethical bank. What is the first one? Integrity. What is the second one? Objectivity. I think you know now what you mean by an objectivity. Right. Now let's look at the third point. That is the professional competence and due care. What do you mean by competence? Right? What do you mean by a competence? So you competence mean few things. We discussed last week as well. What is competence? Now competence is basically knowledge, skills, attitudes and attributes. Usually competency means knowledge, skills, attitudes and attributes. So knowledge mean about the bank, knowledge about the industry, knowledge about the competitors, knowledge about the market. That is the professional knowledge about your banking industry. What is the skill you need to have it? What are the professional skill you need to have? That skills may be technical skills, maybe the conceptual skills. You need to foresee the future, strategically look into the future, as well as the human skills. These are the three type of skills you need to have. Professional competence is that. And mean to attitudes mean think positively, think everything positively, and attributes mean so the manner in which you can present it to the customers. So therefore, bankers are required to have a necessary professional knowledge and skills to carry out work. Right? So that is why you here, but that is why you are IBSL is conducting courses like that to improve your professional knowledge. So without improving your professional knowledge, skills and things like that, you cannot perform your job in a professional manner. Then you cannot be a professional bank, ethical bank, right? So bankers are required to develop your competencies. So therefore, bankers must follow applicable technical and professional standard when providing of professional services. That remember, professional services, right? Okay, now you learn three things. We learn integrity, we learn objectivity, and the professional competence and due care when you're dealing with your customers. Right? Three things you need to develop as a professional banker, and then only you can behave as a professional or ethical bank. Now we look at the fourth important one, the confidentiality. So of course, this is very much well aware about that than other things. You're very well aware because information acquired as a result of a professional and business relationship, and therefore not disclose any such information to third party. Now you know as a professional banker, and so this is basically regulated. When you get an appointment letter, usually we sign the confidentiality clause. Right? Now if you learn little more on that, so that is what you call the banker's secrecy. Now even though this is in a law, but it was enriched in the Banking Act, right? So what is the position of Sri Lanka in relation to the banker's duty of confidentiality? So Banking Act 30 of 1988, Section 77 talk about the duty of secrecy. So director or manager or office or any other person is employed in the business of any licensed bank or licensed specialized bank. So sign a declaration pledging himself to observe strict secrecy in all transactions of the bank. You are not supposed to divert any information about your customers, and that is there, right? Now you know what happened, right? What you can do, you can divert. You don't want to maintain uh, this secrecy in three situations. Why? By a court of law, you can divert. By a person to whom such matter related in the performance of duties in order to comply with any of the provisions of the Act. Now, let me simply try to explain to. I think you as a banker, you know all these things about the confidentiality. It is covered under Section 77 of the Banking Act. So you can divert information, these three. First one, by a court of law. Now, when there is a court order comes to provide the originals or certified copy documents, you need to provide this information, right? But right, okay, and also maybe some various statutes and valid requests from various institutions. Also, you need to provide this information. Second one, by the person to whom such matter related. Now that means there are two ways: express consent and implied consent. So what do you mean by the express consent? Mean when a customer authorized the bank either verbally or in writing to give a reference or diverge information in his account for a third party, you can divert. Then these are some of the exceptions of confidentiality, right? And then the implied consent means giving status opinion to other banks, right? Under Banking Act Amended 2 of 2005, and that facility is given your some status opinion to other banks. The bank us, you can divert some information, not all, as a customary banking practice. Therefore, expression interest, concern, and the implied concern. Third one, in order to comply with any other provisions of this act, any other law, especially in the FIU, maybe in Inland Income Tax Department, they ask you some information about the customer, so you need to provide this information. And mind you, this information you need to provide through your compliance officer. Remember, you cannot divert. Usually, banking system, you have send it all this information through your compliance officer, right? And also the third, second one, you can divert some information if the bank for some reason is illegal actions against the customer, right, of most bank, and this is not much cover in there, right? So what happened, for example, uh, Cbbo, if you want to take some parate execution, you can execute this. And then, so if you are not adhered to in the Section 79, if secrecy is not observed knowledgeably or willfully, employer will be guilty of an offense and liable for fine, imprisonment of fine for 3 years imprisonment, or exceeding rupees 1 million. Of course, these are now is not much enough. So the new Banking Act, the central bank going to come up. I think they are going to change all these rates for penalties. 1 million is not enough. 3-year imprisonments is not enough. At the time of then they introduced this new laws, maybe 1 million is a huge amount, but in today's context, that amount is not. So that is the bank secrecy. But it is a law, but usually as a principal person, I mean, principal fundamental principle. So as you banks, you're not supposed to divert any information. And there's a very famous case on this, and that is what you call Gamini Fonseca versus People Bank case in Sri Lankan banking industry. So we have breach of secrecy, the famous case called Gamini Fonseca versus People Bank's case. So if I want to just to give you some information about this case, the Gamini Fonseca was the former, he's a famous actor, and one time he became the chief, he was the governor, and then he's become the deputy speaker, right, in the parliament, deputy speaker. And this case basically, very interesting case, you need to know. Gamini Fonseca versus People's Bank. So Gamini Fonseca as a deputy speaker, and he has taken a loan from People's Bank this Maharamaya, and then the Ravia Big Taiwan, the newspaper, put an advertisement as in Gamini Fonseca's case. The deputy speaker, he put it in a singular like this: Nyocha Katanayaka Mahajana Bankwota Pulutiyai. So being a deputy speaker, if you are not default the loans, it's not good. All the details about the Gamini Fonseca's loan he has taken from Tissa Maharama People's Bank branch for construct some hotel called Sanasuma to my. I remember there's a Sanasuma something, but he was defaulted and big paper article. So Gamini Fonseca's lawyer not file actions against the Ravia, the newspaper, the Victoria. So, but Gamini Fonseca's lawyer file actions against the People's Bank. Why? Because all the paper is carried all the personal information about the Gamini Fonseca's loan. So the Gamini Fonseca's lawyers has put a case against the People's Bank. Right. That's a very interesting story about this secrecy case. Then what happened? The People's Bank has done it. People's Bank head of his file actions against the manager of Tisamana. Why? Because we have signed Section 77. We are not supposed to divert any information. Now, bank manager has to give some evidence who has diverted this information. So that's the case, right? So Gamini Fonseca, ultimately what happened, the People's Bank take actions against the manager of Tissa Maharama under Section 70. That poor Tissa Maharama manager, maybe due to the same incident, so he had a heart attack and died. So then the People's Bank sent it to the Gamini Fonseca, saying that People's Bank going to take some actions against the manager. Unfortunately, manager has died. So we know this: if the acquisition was died, there's no more case in future. The Gamini Fonseca again sent another letter to People's Bank. Here, I have not dealt with People's Bank, Tissa Maharama manager, but the Gamini Fonseca dealt only with the People's Bank. So the People's Bank is having a vicarious liability because he is the employee of the People's Bank. So therefore, to pay the Gamini Fonseca compensation or some fine. So ultimately, after some time, the People's Bank and the Gamini Fonseca come to a certain settlement, and that case was over. So that's very interesting case. Only case in Sri Lanka in terms of breach of secrecy, right? But apart from that, remember the secrecy also fundamental thing apart from the law, right? So the next one, the next professional, next fundamental principle banker needs to carry out professional behavior. The fifth one. First one is integrity. Second one is the objectivity. Third one, the professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and the fifth one is a professional behavior. So what do you mean by a professional behavior? Professional behavior is what you call the bankers must comply with all relevant laws and regulations. So that is why we discussed earlier the compliance manager's role. The compliance officer's role is to educate the management and the general staff what are the laws prevailing in Sri Lanka pertain especially for bankers. So bankers must comply with all relevant laws and regulations and is required to treat all people contacted in professional capacity with courtesy and due consideration, right? So this is how a banker must behave, must comply with all the relevant laws and regulations. Bank is required to treat all employees contacted in a professional capacity with the courtesy and considerations, right? So these are the five uh, professional fundamental principle a banker need to follow and for banker to become a ethical bank and you are to become a ethical employee. When once you become an ethical employee, when you're performing according to the adhering to these principles, professional principles, and bank automatically be a good ethical bank. Right. So now I think you understand. So how you become an ethical banker? Through you behave in an ethical manner, so your bank become ethical bank. Right. Let's look at it now. It is not your hand now. I'll just give you some case just to see whether you understood this concept or not. Right? You understood the concept. Okay, let's look at it this case. So you are giving a small case study. You are approached by your colleague Cyril. So Cyril is, you are approached by your colleague Cyril, who has received a complaint from a client. The client is a complaint to you because he has not been able to produce a promised report on time. Now, so Cyril has come to you, right, and tell that because you are a boss baby, right? Cyril boss, you are a boss, and he said there's a customer's complaint against him because he has not provided the report which was promised uh, by the Cyril to his customer, right? Now, Cyril says to you that this is because there is a new software system that has not got the gifts with yet. Now, he said, why I am not in a position to uh, send this report because we have some problem with our software because I am not much trained enough to get it. That is the answer given by Cyril to you. Now, what Cyril is telling you now, Cyril would like to contact the client, you to contact the client to tell them that there has been a problem with the system. Now, he comes and tells you because otherwise, client is telling he's going to complain to the head office. The moment you complain to head office, the Cyril also going to have a problem. Now, Cyril is telling you to communicate with the customer, tell them that is not wrong with the Cyril, just it's because of the problem with the systems. Right? He's telling you to do that. Now let's look at it another one. Now he tells you more than you wish to know about the background of the client's request. I will tell everything more than you wish to know about the background to the client's request. Are you going to tell what really happened? The office practice is for this type of report to be checked by a colleague before sent out. Now, your boss has to sign before he send all this report. You need to sign. Now, Cyril says that has to check his own report, says that he has checked. Now, he has already checked his own report, but asks you to sign it off without look at it. Now, Cyril is telling you, your boss, Cyril is telling his boss, I have already done everything, I have checked, and only thing is, sir, you need to sign. Only sign. There are some managers, he trusts the Cyril and sign no, right? But you and Cyril, even though having a boss subordinate relationship, you are a very good friends. So you want to help. And he said, Cyril said further, he says there's a drink in it for you if you help. අපි මේක අසගල දැම්මොත් අපි පොඩි හවසට නැත්නම් පොඩි ෂොට් එකක් දාමු. හරි. So drinking is for you. Now he also tells you, Cyril also tells you not to tell anyone in case he gets into trouble. මේ ගැන කාටවත් කියන්න එපා සර්. එහෙම කිව්වොත් මාව අමාරුයි වැඩ. Now this is the incident, so you may come across some cases similar in your organization. Now, what really case talking about? Customers need some report which Cyril is supposed to provide. So Cyril said because he has not got the this very difficult, say for an example, say moratorium for example, or something these days. So some information you need to provide to the customer. You say there's some problem with our system, and he's requesting you to communicate to the customer all these things because of the software problem or maybe some system problem, nothing to do with serious fault, and please sign to send. And if you do that, I will look after you, and we have a if you are not signed, I have get into the problem. Right. Now you as a boss, so you as a serious boss, how can you behave in a professional manner? Right? Let's look at it. Which of the actions in the case study compromise integrity? Which of the actions in the case study compromise objectivity? Which of the actions in the case study compromise professional competence and due care? Which of the actions in the case study compromise confidentiality? And which of the actions in the case study compromise professional behavior? So you as a superior of Cyril, so which of the actions in the case study compromise your integrity? So that means if you're attentive to all these things, you're losing integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, compromise confidentiality, and professional behavior. Right? You haven't understood the case. Now, are you going to bridge all these 5 professional fundamentals when you're adhering to when you're following the Cyril request, right? Okay. Now, let's look at it now, where you compromise integrity in the case, right? First one, you know what you mean by integrity mean? To be straightforward, honest, reported, true and full. Which of the action in the case study compromise integrity? Cyril would like you to contact the client to tell them that there has been a problem with the system. But that is not the case. That means, so you are not telling the dealing, fair dealing and truthfulness is there, not there. So you're breaking the integrity. That means if you really look at it, and he said, uh, he said, Cyril would like you to contact the client to tell them that has been a problem with the system. So now Cyril is requesting for you to tell untruths to the customer. So that means you are breaching first one, truthfulness. So that is integrity. Okay, right. Second one, let's look at the second one. And Cyril says that he has checked his own report but asks you to sign it off without looking at it reckless. So that means second one. So the Cyril is asked you not only to tell the wrong thing to their customers, and also to not to be associated from materially false or incomplete, misleading statement, or provide recklessly. So that is integrity. So two-way you break the professional fundamentals, right? Second one, let's look at it. The objectivity, right? How you break the objectivity? What do you mean by objectivity? To not to allow bias and conflicts of interest. How bias? Because of his friend. Conflicts of interest, right? Okay, let's look at it now. Which of the actions in the case study compromise objectivity? You and Cyril are friends, and so you want to help. So that means if because of your friends, you're breaching the objectivity. And also, he said there's a drink it for you if you help. So that means, so what that? Undue influence of others override the professional or business judgment. That is conflict of interest. Right? Just because of something, you're going to tarnish your objectivity. Right? Okay, so the two areas where you're breaching the objectivity, compromise the objectivity. Now, one third one is the professional competence and due care. Now, have a professional knowledge and skill. Now, let's look at it. Where you compromise the professional competence and due care. Now, Cyril says he has not been able to produce a promised report on time. Cyril says that this because this new software system that he has not got to grips with yet. Now, he said. Now, that is what? Professional competency. Because why he's telling he's not in a position to get the professional knowledge. So it is a duty of him, you or him, to get a knowledge about how to use your systems properly. So that is the professional competence. Now let's look at the confidentiality. What do you mean? You know what you mean by confidentiality? He tells you more than you wish to know about the background the client's request. He tells you not to tell anyone in the case he gets into trouble. So that means, so you are breaking the confidentiality, compromise, if you are not background to the client's request and also due to disclose. Right? And that's another thing. And the last one, professional behavior, right? You are approached by your colleague Cyril, who has received a complaint from a client. First thing, right? Professional compromise, professional behavior. You not make it to the training event. And there's a normally an inappropriate way in which a complaint from a client should be dealt with while there's a continuity duty to develop not only core skills, but those who need to work effectively for clients. So that is, if you are not behave in a professional way, but you are not not adhere to your complaints. You know, the chart also talk about when you get a complaint, that's the normal procedure to be followed, right? Okay, so I think you have an idea now about these five areas with this example. Let me quickly again summarize this case, and we discuss uh, what are the uh, as a professional banker, if you want to conduct your businesses in an ethical manner, so what are the fundamental principles you need to follow? So there are five fundamental principles. One is uh, basically integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior. Right? So you as a professional banker, if you want to be like ethical banker, right, you need to practice, you need to adhere to this fundamental principle. Right? You know what you mean by integrity. Integrity means straightforward, so dealing truthfulness. You are not dealing with uh, false or incomplete documents. Objectivity means not to buy because of religions or whatever, not to have a conflict of interest, not to influence you under influence of others. So then the professional competencies, you need to have a required knowledge to do your jobs and things like that. And we discuss about the confidentiality, and also, and the last one we discuss about the professional behavior. So you need to know the rules and regulations, right? And then we discuss with this case with Cyril, and how you compromise all these five points. I hope you understood uh, this case. Okay, right. So now, before we move into the break, so let me discuss now. Say you need to perform your duty or your job based on professional standards. But when you are carried out your businesses, when you're performing your professional, what you call these professional principles, right? But you may come across some threats. So let me explain to you what is a threats, ethical threats. Now, the circumstances in which bankers operate may give rise to specific threats to compliance with the fundamental principle. So that means when you are try to adhere to or to be deal with this compliance fundamental principle, so you may come across some threats. So, so let's these threats apply this fundamental principle. First, we need to able to identify and what are the threats, potential threats he's going to face. මේවා අපි කියව අපි මේවා ඊ කියන වැඩ කරන්න ගියාම මොනවද ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන් threats for that particular person. So there are five threats have been identified. There are five threats can be identified. Now these five threats are we call self-interest threats, self-review threats, advocacy threats, familiarity threats, and intimidation threats. Now let's look at it. What are these threats? Now first we'll take self-interest threat. Now these threats often result in what is commonly called as a conflict of interest situation. Right? Because of conflicts of interest situation, so this threat comes to you. Now say result from concern over job security, or from incentive remuneration arrangement. Now, example, we can say the giving highest interest rate to your spouse FD. All right. So there's a self-interest threat, because so you may have a problem because since you're a manager, you cannot fulfill your both requirements. One may spouse also asking money. You are a manager. Why you can't, if you are manager, you can't give little bit interest rate for your spouse or friends? What's the point? So that's a self-interest that you face. You may lose your friend sometimes. Suppose rather than your spouse, you say friends FD. So friend will think, right? And he's a manager. He not even giving me some interest for my FDs, negotiable rate. That is self-interest threat. Now, example for this, we'll take an example. Now, John is a CIMA member working as finance controller of a listed public company. Now, John has a shares in the company and knows that the share price depends to some extent on the reported profits. Now, John is responsible for producing the published accounts of the company. Now, say, John is a CIMA member working as a financial controller of a listed public company. And he also has some shares in that company and knows that the share price depends on to some extent of the reported profits. Now, John is responsible for producing the accounts. If the John show high accounts, high profits, he also benefit. Why? He also has some shares. Now, what type of ethical threat does he represent? That's the conflicts of interest. Why? He want to show as a professional person, he want to show, he want to give correct profits. But also, if you're going to put the correct report, he may have some problem with these shares. Right? So that type of situation, the John is facing an ethical threat is what you call self-interest threat. Right? Self-interest threat. We call self-interest threat. Right? I think you understood, right? Okay, let's look at the these threats often result from a company called as conflict of interest situation, because John can ultimately benefit financially from his action, so his objectivity may be compromised. That's a objectivity may be compromised because of this interest situation, right? Okay, let's look at the next one. Self-review threats. Self-review threat. Now self-review threats occur when you are required to reevaluate your own previous judgment. So, so now you have taken decisions, and so it's like this. Now, say you have evaluate your subordinate performances and send it to the head office or maybe to your boss. And boss is asking from you to reevaluate your previous judgment against your subordinates. Now, what do you think? Now, one way, so you cannot request, you cannot object the request made by your superior, review your subordinated evaluation report, and now So you have already taken a previous judgment. So now he was asked to look at it your judgment. So then what happened? So you are facing a self-review threat. Because of what? Your early decisions. Right? So the next ones we call the advocacy threats. In general, promoting the legitimate goals of your employer does not create an advocacy threat, provided that any statement you make are not misleading. Right? But remember this case. Kumar is a CIMA member working as the CFO of a public listed company. The company is in the process of applying for additional loan. Now, so Kumar is a CIMA member working as CFO of a public listed company. Now, the company is in the process of applying for an additional loan. Now, Kumar has been asked to write to the company's bank providing a forecast of a future cash flows, which is to be very optimistic. Now, which type of ethical threat does this represent? Right? Now, we was asked to give more cash flow, high cash flow information. Now, in general, promoting the legitimate goals of your employer does not create an advocacy threat, provided that any statement you are not misleading. So, but Kumar is being asked to promote a positions or opinion to that point that subsequent objectivity may be compromised. So that means you are asked to give more information. So you are facing, therefore, advocacy threat. Right? Next one, we call the familiarity threat. Now, this can result from a long association with business contacts who influence business's decision, long association with colleagues, or from accepting gifts or preferential treatment from a client. So, granting loan for your close relative businesses is you're facing a familiarity threats, and he will support you a lot, but now you are try to give him a loan. So you are facing a familiarity threat, right? Okay, now say for another question on this, which of the following is not an example of a familiarity threat? Not accepting gifts or preferential treatment from a client, having a close business relationship with the client, having a close family relationship with the director of a client, a former partner of the company being a director of a client, which is not example of familiarity threat. The answer is having a close business relationship with the client, self-interest stress. But self-interested is something else. All are familiar with uh, other things with familiarity threats, right? Okay, now having understood that, the last one is called intimidation threats. It could be the threats of dismissal over a disagreement about applying a banking principle. Right? Now, say, so you as explained to you also, now, so you dismissal or a disagreement about applying banking principles. Now, just because of you apply your banking principle and somebody dominant personally attempt to influence the decision making process, right? Now, you was asked to imposed deadline by a major client. So that is what you call intimidation. Now say for an example, Kamal is a management accountant, is employed by JKG company. Kamal has prepared the draft annual financial statement for the company. KG's CEO, prior to the board meeting, and he requested Kamal to increase the company profit by rupees 500,000 before board meeting. Which is the threat would apply to Kamal? Now, say Kamal being a management accountant, and here he has prepared draft annual financial statement for the company. Now, JKG is the company's CEO. Before you send it to the board meeting, prior to the board meeting, and he requested Kamal to increase the company profit by rupees 500,000 before the board meeting. So that is now case. Threat of dismissal over a disagreement about applying an accounting principle financial history. Why? Now, who is asking you to do that? Your CEO. Now, if you dismiss his request, what happens? He could be a dominant personality. Now, he is trying to influence your decision-making process. So that threat you're facing is called intimidation threats. Right? So if you're going to behave professionally, remember, you may sometimes going to come up with some ethical threats. Right? So that's the principle. So remember, as a banker, as a professional banker, you need to behave, or you need to carry out your businesses, you carried out your job in a professional manager as a professional manager based on certain fundamental principles. Those fundamental principles are called integrity, objectivity, then competence, then you may have a professional behavior and the confidentiality. So when you try to carry out your job in a professional manner, being an ethical banker, you may sometimes need to face some of the ethical threats. Those ethical threats, we call them as self-interest threats, self-review threats, advocacy threats, familiarity threats, and intimidation threats. Since you're going to follow, so you need to understand all these threats, right? That is what you call the ethical threats. Right. Now, with this one, we are going to going for a break. Nimal, an employee, prepares monthly management accounting for like last time, right? Nimal, an employee, prepares monthly management accounting information for KYZ company, which includes detailed performance data that is used to calculate staff bonuses. Based on information prepared by Nimal, this year's bonuses will be lower than expected. It's a classic situation. These days, bank may be prepare some information about the profits. Right? Okay. Nimal, remember, Nimal is your accountant, say for instance an employee. He prepares monthly management accounting information for XYZ company, which includes detailed performances data that is used to calculate staff bonuses. Now, staff bonuses was given based on company's performances. Now, who prepared this company's performances? Nimal. Nimal also an employee of that organization. Now, based on the NIMAL accounting information, performance information, calculate the staff bonuses. Now, based on the information prepared by NIMAL, now other people get to know NIMAL's information, what they have prepared, this year's bonuses will be lower than expected. Now, NIMAL, we are doing other things that way, අපිට bonus එකක් දෙන්නේ. Now, it's a classic situation. NIMAL has had approach from other staff of offering various things to make the accruals for additional revenue and other reversible adjustments to enable all staff, including demand, to receive the increase of higher bonds. So others comes to you and ask you to do some sort of some adjustments to your report, where you can show some other extra revenue going to come after that adjustment, and that will lead you to enable all staff, including NIMAL, to receive increase of higher bonus. NIMAL ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා අනිත් කට්ටිය මේ තව accruals adjustments වගේ දාවුමලා අපිට පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන් කියලා high performance. එහෙම කළොත් NIMAL as an employee and all others going to get higher bonuses. Now, few things here. We learn ethical principles and ethical threats. Does NIMAL face? Now, say NIMAL as a person. Now, one way he has to perform is ethical principles, adhere to ethical principles. And also he facing ethical threats. So what are those things? And they're only the prospect, right? Now let's look at it. What are the threats and principle NIMAL is going to face? First one, integrity. That is the principle. To be straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationships. Fair dealing and truthfulness is that principle, because he want to manipulate, no. That's integrity, the principle is out. Objectivity. As an accountant, need to ensure that their professional or business judgment is not compromised because of bias or conflicts of interest. Objectivity, remember, what kind of objectivity? Right? Not bias because of friends and conflicts of interest. Because of he is going to get some bonuses and he is going to change your performance figures. So objectivities. These are the two fundamental professional principles is going to diverge. Then what is the threat he is facing because of that? These threats is called self-interest threat. Because of this conflicts of interest situation, he may reduce the performance, he also losing the bonuses as an employee. That is self-interest threat. Self-interest threat. I think you got the point, right? Now, because of you not manipulating, if you manipulate, what happens? He losing, breaking the integrity and objectivity. But what is the threat he is facing? Because of your stick to the fundamental principles, he is maybe facing self-interest threat, but he also not going to get any bonuses, right? So I think you understood the threats and the fundamental principles, ethical principle he is going to face of something. So you as a banker, you need to understand all these things. I hope you understood for these 2 hours what is basically talking about the principle, ethical principle. As a professional banker, you need to carry it out, and what are the ethical threats you're going to face because of you're going to apply your ethical principle. You need to understand both, right? Remember, in your CIMA or in your CFA, in your degree levels, uh, right? And so these ethical aspects is playing an important role, right? As well as in marketing, right? I think you understood now. As a professional banker, what are the fundamentals you need to adhere? What are the threats you are going to face because of that? Clear? Okay. Right. So we'll go for break, and we'll be back sharp at 4 o'clock, and we will discuss what you mean by whistleblowing policy. What are the typical issues in business ethics we are facing, and also we are going to discuss what are the common causes for unethical behavior, why people tend to behave unethically, all these things, right? And then after that, we may going for future of bank branches. Right. Okay. See you, and then join again me at 4 o'clock sharp. We will continue the balance part. Let me start where we have left earlier. So we'll move into the whistleblowing policy, and all these whistleblower is a person who tells the public or someone in authority about the alleged dishonest or illegal activities occurring in a government department or private company or an organization. Now here these now according to the central bank direction, every bank must have the whistleblowing policy. Now that is will facilitate or to avoid any unethical um, any financial fraud will take place in an organization. Any employee of the organization can communicate to the respective high authority or any legal authority about some malpractices or unethical businesses taking place in that organization, where this policy will protect the whistleblower who will communicate this message to the third party. So, is a person who raises concern about frauds, corruption, wrongdoings, and mismanagement. So that's a whistleblowing policy. That's a very good initiative taken by the central bank. So it was requested all the banks to um, have the whistleblowing policy, uh, and it has to be built in an ethical, sustaining an ethical culture in the organization. Has to manage with care, but must not be surplus or dismissed. And that's the policy developed to adhere for all these organizations, especially banks, has to uh, work in a ethical manner. So that's what you call the whistleblowing. Now, what are the typical issues in ethics, business ethics, right? So one fact is what you call creative accounting. So we will discuss all these things: creative accounting, then misleading advertising, then mis-selling. I will explain in little detail all these things, right? And data protection and privacy, political contribution to gain influence, using legal loopholes to avoid paying tax, marketing, sales, and negotiation techniques, hostile acquisition. So like that, there are so many environmental issues and related social concerns, product issues such as patent and copyright infringements, insider dealing, employee issues such as discrimination, so unfair dismissal, bribery, and things. And uh, and out of this, So we will come to this. We'll discuss about what are the unethical issues. What I explained to you, I'm going to explain in more detail. Presentations of false returns of income and statements. Sometimes we call the creative accounting. Now, what do you mean by a creative accounting? Actually sometimes we call a financial fraud. That means inflating or deflating the actual profit figures of an organization, right? So that is what we call creative accounting. Actually, it's a financial fraud. It is a common issues in business ethics, right? One is creative accounting. Second one is now false advertising. Now say, look at it, the left hand one, that is less sprinklers in only minutes. Now you say all persons go like this, right? So those are unethical false advertising. So what do you mean by that? So this is against the law or is unethical, right? So these are false advertising. Especially the central bank has given direction. The when you advertise, especially for long-term FD instrument, you need to disclose the annual effective rate in your advertisement, right? So those are some of the things, and all the information needs to be clearly communicated to customers, right? So central bank direction, they talk about ethical advertising, especially in the financial products. Third one is financial mis-selling. Now, financial mis-selling is taking place in an organization most oftenly. And what do you mean by a financial mis-selling? And can be defined as the inappropriate selling of a financial product or services to a customer without taking certain factors into account. I mean, they are hiding certain um, information which are not good for customers. So that means aggressive or incompetent sales tactics, failure to appropriately advise customers the goods and the bad things, and so these are what you call financial mis-selling. Financial mis-selling means basically without telling the full information to the customers, you are trying to sell a financial product to a customer. It is called financial mis-selling. Then, so another important typical issue in ethics is bribery. Now, accepting bribe or maybe giving a bribe also we consider as a uh, as a ethical issues, right? And it's create a conflict of interest between the person receiving the bribe and his organization, right? So it is an unethical practice. Then you have the coercion, is forcing a person to do things which are against his personal beliefs, blocking a promotion, right? Loss of job for blackmailing is called coercion. So that's also considers to be a unethical practices issue, right? So coercion. So then there's something called insider trading. So insider trading is misuse of your official position. Say you as an say now example. Now you working in a John Keel's company. Say for an example. Now John Keel's company is going to declare some bonuses, or maybe right share, or maybe bonuses within another 3 4 days time. Now, inside person who are working in the John case, it will communicate this information to the share market people or known people or trade people. Now, why they communicated all these things to the outside people? Because the John case going to issue some bonus share. Now, within a 1 week time, right? But because of that information get to know only for limited people, those people go into the share market and try to buy the John Keel shares, expecting this John Keel is going to issue a right issue, so maybe the bonus issues another 1 week time. But this information is got only for limited number of people. It is not from the entire people. So if the every publics are well aware, they are also try to go and buy the shares. But that information from the ground case, send it to only to these certain people. These are, remember, a confidential information. As a result of that, some people have some advantage. So that is what you call insider trading. In Sri Lanka, one gentleman called Mr. Um, Rajaratnam, right? D. Rajaratnam. He is a guy involving in this type of activity in USA, still in Bay Area, right? Remember, not in Sri Lanka, in USA, Sri Lankan guy. So insider trading, so that is misuse of his official position. So one employee or the persons leak out certain confidential information to outsiders or other insider, which affect the reputation or performance of the company. So that is what you call insider trading. So then, as we explained to you earlier, the conflicts of interest also considered to be a threat, because he is doing conflict of interest when private interests are important for employees against the desire of employees, right? So that's another unethical issue. So therefore, unfair discrimination. So that is due to um, due to privileges is given due to, as I explained to you, due to race, maybe the age, maybe the sex, nationality, the religion, the color, right? And it is failure to treat all persons equally. That means sometimes we call equal pay, all we comes under unfair discrimination. Is a very common thing in today's unethical practices. Then accumulations of profits by illegal means. We are using selling drugs, selling weapons and things like unethical and unconstitutional ways of maximizing profit is called uh, is also a unethical practices. Then another more important things, if I explain to you, as is mentioned here, uh, the uh, product issues such as patent and copyright infringements. Uh, then most common thing is what you call hostile acquisition. Now, what do you mean by the hostile acquisition mean? So acquisition, there are two types. One is hostile, other one is friendly acquisition. Now, hostile acquisition mean basically with the objections of the directors, as well as with the objection of the senior management, A company is going to take over the B company, is called hostile acquisition. So that also sometimes we consider as a business ethics. Now, say for example, now these COVID situation, if a one organizations they're not in a position to conduct their businesses because of some other issues prevailing in the market, the big company who is having the power and all these facilities going to take over, and that particular company is a hostile acquisition. But some countries that was not permitted to do, but hostile acquisition also can be considered as uh, can be uh, considered as uh, considered as unethical issues. Now, so recently there's some article. They said out of the many issues which I explained to you, they have identified there are some uh, few uh, common factors or common ethical issues facing in the businesses. One is sexual harassment. Now, sexual harassments, you see why, so there be a lot of cases in Sri Lanka as well as in other countries taking place under sexual harassment, using some illegal words or some, behave in such a manner, uh, uh, and something like that we call sexual harassment. And then diversity and discrimination, and that's become a common one, is a diversity and discrimination mean based on the age, then equal pay, color, sex also today contests become a common ethical issue. Third one is the social media. So today they have identified with through using of the social media, they are using to uh, damage the person's reputations and conduct, and also now it's become ethical issues. And also health and safety also recently identified as a common ethical issues. So if you are not in a position to provide a good health and the safety, and it's become an ethical issues. And environmental responding, and then data privacy, right, information. And the most common reason one is called the nepotism. So what do you mean by the nepotism? So nepotism means, so these days sometimes the Sri Lanka also, uh, some common ethical issues some people are talking. Some of the uh, is a form of favoritism for family member or close friends, that is called nepotism, right? In these are some of the recent common ethical issues faced by business people. The nepotism means they are the form of favoritism for for family members as and the close friends of them. So that is what you call nepotism, right? Right. So these are some of the recent common ethical issues identified by the business people in today's context. Right. Now, let me now explain why all these people. What are the common causes? What are these common causes of these uh, these ethical behavior? What are those common causes of unethical behavior? Right. Let me explain to you one by one. Right. Okay. First one, pressure to objectives and deadline, and increase and inaccurate competition. So let explain by one. To pressure to meet unrealistic objectives and deadline. Now, according to the recent survey, the pressure from management or from the board to meet unrealistic businesses objectives is the leading factor that causes the unethical behavior. Now, say for an example you can quote mis-selling. Now, why we put mis-selling here? Example mis-selling, because the you are giving a unachievable targets, right? And some targets are incentive based. So therefore, what happened? Organization employees, or maybe salespeople, especially, try to sell their products without giving full information to customers, without disclosing all the information to the customer. So one of the important common causes for unethical behavior, especially for mis-selling, because of the board and the management given unrealistic business objective for their employees. So one of the factor they have noted one reason for pressure to meet unrealistic objectives and deadlines. Second point is increase in acute competition. Now, in Sri Lanka, uh, we have too much of banks in Sri Lanka. We have around 29 banks and 43 financial institutions, in the sense the finance companies, including leasing companies. So uh, there may be a lot of competition. So therefore, competition is increasing at national and international level. So everybody is trying to be the highest profit maker. In order to achieve these goals, and organization therefore try to act dishonestly and not ethically. So in order increasing accurate competition. In Sri Lanka also, one of the factor for consolidations, not because of the competition per se, but for uh, that is due to for not fulfillment of the capital adequacy ratios or capital requirement. But one factor is there, but and also increase in acute competition. But competition you need, right? Because competition provide lot of benefits to the customer. You need to appreciate, right? Because of competition, only customers will get a better rate. Because of the competition, customers' buying power is increasing. Because of the competition, the customers get to know all the information. That's correct. But we are talking about increasing in acute competition. So what you call brutal a competition is not good. That will leading to behaving unethically. So that's the second reason why. What are the common causes of unethical behavior? That's the second reason. The third reason we call economic greed. Now, people have a desire to live a life full of comforts and luxuries. Some people follow unethical means to earn more money, right? And that is economic greed. That bribery an example. Why people try to take the bribery? Because of economic greed. So they want to live a very happily, very comfort life without putting their energy much effect. So economic greed, people have a desire to live in a life full of comforts and luxuries. So therefore, people may go for bribery. So the economic greed, one of the reason for ethical behavior, right? Okay, the fourth one, we can call them informations of unethical acts through media. So the information given by media provides ideas to inexperienced businessmen for doing unethical activities. Now, for an example, the information given by media provides ideas to inexperienced businessmen for doing unethical activities. Right? There are some instances we can come across, some information, some especially some teledrama also provides idea to inexperienced business for doing unethical activities. Then the fifth one is the bottom line. Now, pressure to earn profits now that is coming from shareholders. Now the shareholders are pressurizing. They are the people who are high investment and they are expecting high return. So shareholders expectation. Then also employees in that sense also hope for higher salaries and higher benefits. So they also pressure for improved profits. Now directors expect higher remunerations also. Now that's under you learn it differently the corporate governance. So what are the restrictions of direct higher remunerations, right? Thus, there is an increasing pressure to maximize profit, cope up with enlarged requirements. And also remember the organization what happens sometimes the profit is relating to performance based remuneration system of the organization. Now, one of the reason they have identified uh, of this financial crisis that's took place in 2002 7-8 period for a performance-based remuneration system. So the employee's performance remuneration was based on the profits. So therefore, in order to get a better remuneration, right, better remunerate, what they try to sell more complex products. That is the securitizations and things like that. Try to earn more profits. So pressure to earn profits. As a result, they have changed the performance-based remuneration system, and through that, they are trying to do some mis-selling and things like that also, right? Also, pressure on earning profits. Then the next reason is the last reason we can say lack of management support or poor leadership. Now you see the leader is responsible for motivating his staff. You know the leader, the characteristics or the quality of a good leader. He should be a visionary guy. He should be a networking guy. He should be a motivated guy. He should be a inspired guy and things like that. So leader is responsible for motivating the staff. If the leader does not encourage his subordinates to be ethical, then there are higher chances of unethical conduct. The leader must show his organization is work for customers' well-being, right? If the leader is not encouraging subordinate to be ethical, then there is a higher chances of unethical conduct by these employees or followers. If the leader himself is involved in unethical activities, his employees may do the same thing. So those are some of the common causes of unethical behavior. So what are these common causes of unethical behaviors are? One is pressure for objectives and deadlines, then increase acute competition, third, economic greed, fourth, informations of unethical acts to media, fifth, pressure to earn profit, and the last one, lack of management support or poor leadership. So these are some of the common causes of unethical behavior. And then we talk about unethical dilemmas you come across. Situation where he is a decision maker has to decide what is the right or wrong things. To this can be found throughout all aspects of business operation. If you look at from the accounting issues, we see creative accounting, right? Lot of issues are coming from accounting issues. Then you maybe have a productions issues, and then we have a sales and marketing issues, and we have HRM issues. If you are not collect, if you have not performed, if you are not recruited the correct quality people, there may be a HRM issues. And sales and marketing issues, that mean people try uh, to promoted the products in an ethical way, price discrimination, distribution discriminations, and things like that. There may be a lot of sales and marketing issues. So all the business operation area, there may be an ethical dilemmas. So you need to understand. Now, factors that affect the ethical obligations, we can say the law, the government regulations, ethical codes practiced by the individual organization, social pressure coming, and the corporate culture where that organization shared values and uh, customs, and then the personal policies and values of the individuals also affect the ethical obligation, right? So all the factors may contributed for organization to ethically behave, right? So that comes up the end of the uh, ethics we discussed today in more detail. So if you really look at the things what we have learned, so we discussed what is ethics. Now ethics refers to moral principle, what is right and what is wrong, right? Some countries ethics is good, some things are good, some countries are bad, right? And then we discuss what is ethics. Ethics mean is selection of between choices and conducting and behavior, the person's behavior or the conducting of an activity is called ethics. Then we discuss what is code of ethics, and of course, ethics can be in three forms: societal ethics, and we discuss in personal ethics and professional ethics. So, what is code of ethics? So, deciding what is right or wrong is not always easy or clear cut. So for this reason, what happened? Many companies and professional organizations develop their own code of ethics. We call code of ethics. So every organization, banks, all the business people have developed their own code of ethics, right? And then we discuss uh, what are the professional bankers uh, must comply with fundamental principles. We have identified five fundamental principles a professional banker need to comply with. One is integrity, and the second one is the objectivity. Then professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Right? These are the five main uh, fundamental principle the banker must, a professional banker must comply with. So we explain all these details with some example, and then we discuss when you're going to conduct these uh, fundamental principles, comply with these fundamental principles, bankers complying with these fundamental principles. So you may come across some ethical threats. So we have identified five type of ethical threats. One is self-interest threat. Second one is self-review threats, advocacy threats, then familiarity threats, and mediations threats. So all have we explained in details. And then in order to conduct the business in ethical manner, so the banks especially as a regulator introduced the whistleblowing policy, where whistleblowing policy talk about um, person's whistleblower, that guy who is a person um, who is raises concern about frauds, then corruptions, wrongdoing, and mismanagement to be communicated to the relevant authorities concerned. So that's a whistleblowing policy, an initiative taken by the central bank also to address these ethical issues. And then we discuss some typical unethical issues, from creative accounting to misleading advertising, mis-selling, bribery, using legal loopholes to prevent paying any taxes, then so environmental issues, and then insider dealing, so hostile takeovers, then lot of things like that. So we have identified some of the unethical issues, and then we discuss in a greater length what are the common causes of unethical behavior. So those are, we call them as this, because of pressure, objectives and deadlines need to be adhered by the employees, then increase in acute competition, economic greed, information of unethical extra media, then pressure to earn profits, lack of management support, and poor leadership, all common causes of unethical behavior. And then we discuss little bit of ethical dilemmas and factors that affect ethical obligations. So these are the things we learn under ethics, right? So then, up to now, we have identified the banking industry analysis, and then we discuss industry and versus your bank and versus your branch, right? Versus your branch. And that was we discussed last week, and we just summarized today. And then we discuss again the financial crisis and trust and confidence, how we import the trust and confidence for in the banking industry and to avoid any financial crisis. And then we discuss clients can confidence management, what actions the regulator has taken, what action your bank has initiated to build up the client's confidence level to a bank, your bank and a banking industry. And then we discuss ethics, how important ethics and the business ethics in banking, how a bank conducts in their businesses in an ethical manner, how to you become ethical banker and also ethical bank, right? So these are the key points we discussed uh, from last week up to now. The final part of the my lecture is what you call future of bank branches. Now there may be a lot of issues on this. Now some people are arguing whether we are going to discuss that part now, whether banks branches are any more necessary, right? So for many years, so we have had discussions about bank branches and a branchless future, whether we need branches, physical branches, or we don't want branch in the future. So let me explain. One might think these digital revolutions uh, uh, taking place or took place in banking could mark the end of branches. Now, a lot of people are talking about digitalization. So that means you don't want branches because all the people must have a lot of digital way of doing banking businesses, right? So one factor we'll think. The second point, now you noted that during the last several months from this year 2000 now from March onwards, and it's probably the accelerated the trend that is already happening, which is the reliance on traditional bank branches toward the digitalization. So a lot of banks move into the digitalization process, right? But nothing could be further from truth. Some believes bank branches will remain a linking of the banking system. That means they can't live without banking system. There are for and against whether you need future bank branches and or not. So what we are going to discuss, we're going to look at it, the positive side of the bank branches and the negative side of the branches. Both we will consider, right? Both part we will address about this future of bank branches. Now let's look at it with the global aspects, right? Now, now in the US, while there were some branch opening, there may be a branch opening, but there may be a reduction rate of 2% annually. So they have identified there are 2% reductions in physical branches annually. Now, if you really look at the end of 2019, the total branch network was in USA is 76,837, a huge number. So that the bank density there is 31%. Now, you know what you mean by a bank density. The bank density means how many branches per 100,000 people. In that case, every 100,000 people in USA, there are 31 branches. So bank density is very high in USA. Now, if you take the Europe has a near 20% reduction from 2000 to 2015 to 2019. For 188,851 in the entire Europe, right, has come down to 163 to 65 branches. Now, America and USA as well as Europe, there may be a reduction in branches, physical branches. Now, but still, they are having a reported density of 23%. So, density wise, that means number of branches for 100,000 still high, right? And then you look at from the UK's point of view, I'm just referring to certain big countries. If the UK is around 3,300 of the total branch network, close between 2015 to 2019. If you take in Australia, 5% of the banking outlets closed in the year June 2019, but this is the prevailing. But however, the UK and Australia, their density is around 25 to 28. Now, if you really look at it, despite the fact that the branches are closing in USA, Europe, Australia, and some developed countries, but which still a significant network of branches, right? If you really look at it from the figure of the density is comparatively high. Is ranging from 22 or maybe 25 to 31. That's comparatively high, right? Now let's look at it. This figure, why these branches are decline? What are the reasons? There are three reasons I've identified. One factor, actually, this was took place before financial crisis. Now, before in 80s, 1980s period, there may be a lot of merging and acquisition took place. Lot of merging and acquisition took place in early 1980s. So as a result, the network has come down. In 2007, 2008, because of the financial crisis, also remember these branches have come down, right, in Europe countries, right? But if you really look at the World Bank statistics with regard to the bank density, and I'm referring to the world, entire world, right? Bank density increased from 10.9 in 2010 to 13.59% during 2019. Despite the fact of that branches are coming down or closing in the Western world, but therefore there may be a developed increase the number in the developed and less developed countries. Now they are believing in the options of opening branches, maybe due to the fact that they don't have much sophisticated or much not having much uh, digitalization taking place, right? That's the reason, maybe, right? Remember, so if you look at the developed countries, the branches are coming down, but still big number. But according to the World Bank statistics, from 2010, the bank density is increased from 10.9 to 13.59. But whereas you look at it, the other countries, the Western countries, the density is around almost 20, 30 levels. But if you look at what is the Sri Lankan position then? So Sri Lankan bank density reported is around 18%. So good. That means every 1,000 we have 18 branches. But India is around 14.6. Pakistan is around 10%. China is around 8.9. Korea 15%. Bangladesh 8.9, and still you see the Japan is 33%. Right? So Sri Lanka, what is the position? It is around 18%. That means density means 100,000 numbers. We have 18 branch. Every 18% must have branches, right? So China is 8.9. That shows something. So the China is heavily depend on maybe uh, rather than bank. But remember, but the right China is the four largest banks in the world. You need to look at. In Sri Lanka, you also noted that uh, we had around 65 branches open during the last one. Right. Now, we understood the branch positions in Western countries and the developed and developing countries at the Sri Lankan context, right? So in terms of bank density and in terms of some areas, right? So you have an idea about. Right. Now we talk about bank does not need branch anymore, right? So let's look at it then, right? Now what are the reasons we don't want to have a branches? Right? Why we think we don't want branches? One is the digital Darwinism. So that means so entire world is moving from uh, so today they are not branches are not transactional centers now as they used to be. Now transactional activities have largely migrated to mobile and online solutions. Now you see some banks have noted and put an advertisement. If you come to the branch outlet, and you may, if you try to withdraw through the counter, you will be charged 20 rupees like that. That means they are encouraging people to go for uh, online solutions or mobile or other digital uh, mode, right? And but remember, uh, so this lowering branch traffic consistently, so migrated to the online solution. They are not even service centers, as customers now can do more services in apps. So there are a lot of banks apps available. Uh, all the banks have introduced a lot of apps. Through the apps, you can transfer, you can see your balances, you can transfer one account to another account, you can pay your utility payments. Lot of facilities can be done from home. Why? Through the mobile apps. So therefore why we need branches? That's what people are talking. So they are not even advisory centers, because now through the social media and things like that, bank can give a decent advice uh, through to their customers. Because of the digital Darwinism, so the development, so there may be a not necessary by the branches anymore. And also and this disruption caused by the global COVID-19 crisis, but it was accelerated this digital Darwinism. So and we have noted, and the McKinsey has reported that even for some developed countries, especially for elderly people, moving to the online shopping, online banking, and involving in lot of e-commerce businesses, uh, and in short, then COVID-19 could prove a significant catalyst for the accelerations of the trends we have already seen towards the digitalizations of money and money management. Right? There's a tendency people compelled to do digital activity, digitalized banking because of this COVID-19. That is not the reason, but it was accelerated. right? Okay. So then, and also another important thing is ongoing COVID-19 pandemic related quarantine and lockdowns that resulted in closure of physical banks services, and which prompted many customers to seek online access to the banking facilities. Because of these quarantine issues, the lockdown issues, limited number of branch opening, limited time of branch opening, close of branch opening, then customers compelled to look for online access. So that is one of the reasons. But once you get used to that, people may think why we want this branch anymore. And now you see there are 13 14 million people lived in the Johan city in China, so they don't have a problem with bank branches. They lot of banking businesses carry out through online, so they have not feel it whether they want a branch or not. So that's one of the reason, right? And also some profitability pressure. Opening a branch is costly. You need to occupy 5 6 people, you need to pay rent, you need to buy equipment, you need to maintain, the electricity, the utility costs, all ultimately uh, boil down to the profitability. So profitability issues banks are now facing. So because of this growing regulatory compliance cost, because banks need to perform uh, a lot of comply to a lot of regulatory issues and revenue growth difficulties. So banks need to reshape by pay more attention to cost cutting. So mainly by improving the operational improvement. So therefore, branch now look at it uh, other alternatives, right, than the physical presence, right? So that is the profitability pressure faced by the organized banks may pre-look at it, whether they look at whether they need the branches. So right? And and in age where the efficiency is the golden ticket, and recent latest uh, KMPG Sri Lanka Banking Report issued in November 2020, and they have indicated that the net branch networks will be slimmed down in the future, where are also like to become smaller and more digitally enabled than branches, right? So that is their prediction. So one factor is the coin factor and the profitability factor, all be contributing to reductions in branch, right? So what are the challenges faced by financial institution, right? And one factor is providing a consistent and seamless omni-channel experience. So branch multi facility of providing omni-channel mean multi-channel experience to the customer, right? Reducing operating expenses, so that's one other factor. Then driving a sales revenues, improving revenue per branch employee. So we work it out. One of the indicator for performance indicator, all banks branch for employee, cost per employee, right? Delivering the best services experience possible, right size of the branches. So these are the factors, top branch challenges faced by financial institution today. Whether to what extent branch challenge and face financial institution providing these services. If you really look at it, financial institution readiness to leverage the digital technologies, one factor. So how banks are ready to go for digital? That's another issue banks are facing. So even though we need to go for digitalization. So there are some issues. Leverage digital technologies bank to move into the fully digital aspect. Okay, so these are the support of branchless. These are support of branchless, right? So these are the support of branchless. We don't want branches, but we need to look at it. Another aspect, branch, how branch going to support the business, whether we need branches or not, right? But we need branches. It's not going to go away, but it will be never be the same, right? Let's look at it now, right? Now, overwhelming view of bankers is that branches are not going away anytime soon. Now, there's some report called the World Branch Report 2019. So that is the report is conducted by the Brand Finance World Bank report entire the world. So the research have found a bit more than half, 54% believe physical facilities are either critical to the institution's retail strategy. They still believe the bank's retail strategy, the more than 50% still believe the physical facilities are there. Branch physically presence is important for them to build up their retail strategy. Right. And then 88% either agreed or strongly agreed that branches add value for their institution's customers. Whatever said and done, they think there may be some value additions taking place, whether if you have branches. Now, and this is a classic survey done by the same brand, a financial brand company in USA, and after done a lot of research, and they asked from various sample of the population in the world, and what do you think about survive without branches? Financial institution, they asked, right? From the financial institution, they asked. They said 70 people still believe without branches, the financial institution cannot survive, right? So that still the financial institution survive, believe we need some branches, right? Now, tell us again the same thing. Consumers answer for having bank branch important to you. Why you think the branch bank uh, important for customers? All say yes, but what for the main purpose? I would prefer a bank with branches. They like branches. Yes, my bank must have a branches. Even though sometimes they may not going to the branch, but they still prefer to have a branch. Having branches or not is not a factor in my decision. So some people say it's not a factor to be considered. Some 12%, it's not important if my bank has branches. Not have branches only two, right? But still majority of people, if you look at the so-called developed countries, customers are expecting, they they consider they need a branch. And then they ask, what is the still rely on branches? What are the basic points? In July 2009, they carried out, they go in for a deposit a check, withdraw cash, deposit cash, cash a check, sir, speak with personal. So there are reasons why customers going for a bank. Still, there are enough IT solution, but still customers still rely on branches for basic banking activity, right? Now, another important thing of banks important is access to finance. Now, you see the access to finance being is an essential driver for economic growth, especially for developing and transition economies, the countries like Sri Lanka, where it stimulates markedly the social inclusions of certain group of population. Now, what do you mean by the financial inclusion mean? So get a lot of people to the banking form, right? What happen if you don't have a bank? People may go for other sources of mechanism, like go for polymodalali for a higher interest rates and things like that. So, especially for improve the social inclusion, we need to have a certain branches there, right? Actually, the branches will empower people, give them the opportunity to have an account, save and invest, to take loan, in many cases to break their chains of poverty. So in the economic aspect, access to finance is play an important role. How can you access to finance? By opening branches, right? Okay. Then Sri Lanka, of course, has achieved important things. Higher financial access rate of 73. So Sri Lankan financial access rate is okay, but still the financial usage remains subdued. That means even the access is high. To what extent Sri Lankan people are using the finance, these branches? That is what you call financial usage, right? Now, you financial usage mean usually we work it out uh, to how to use of credit from the branches, number of transactions performed during the last year, debit cards and mobile bankings activities, and that is what you call financial usage. If you really look at the financial usage, right, in Sri Lanka, even though the literacy level is around 93% in Sri Lanka. But what is the financial literacy rate in Sri Lanka? It stands around 30-35%. So what do you mean by the financial literacy mean? People average knowledge about banks, banking products, transaction cost and things like that. That is financial literacy. But our normal literacy level, writing and reading, is 93, well above the industry, well above the in the well above this region. But as far as the financial literacy rate stands around 30 to 35. So there may be a huge gap between print literacy and the financial literacy, right? So how can you fill this gap? You can fill this gap by having physical branches. That's the one of the reason why you need to have a branches. Now, our regulators and banks have engaged in a lot of initiative to boost the financial literacy through customer education, which is a key part of customer protection. So regulators have come up with a lot of initiative to improve the financial literacy. But one factor you can support the improve the financial literacy by establishing a bank branches, right? Thereby, so and also remember the SME and the micro sectors are acknowledged to be crucial for growth of any economy. So, so a lot of banks, a lot of governments, they have identified the importance of SME and the micro sector, and which are driving force for economic growth. And a loss in branch bankers is potentially is a problematic because it may reduce the local customers to access to financial services, as well as small business access to credit. They may go for, as I told you, like polymodalali and take higher rates, higher charge. They charge high interest rate for their loans, right? So therefore, remember, financial access play an important role. Improve the financial literacy level. For that, we need to have branches, physical branches, right? And then look at it, another point here. Branch also can be used as a marketing tool, is a marketing investment. Branch as a distributional channel, and they perform a lot of functions. They perform promotions, and that is the branch is the contact point between the brand and the customers. And branch provide the matching, provide solution to the financial problem, identify the problem of the customer, and match their needs with the financial product. So therefore matching purpose. Then information provision. So branch will provide information. And so therefore you look at it from the branch can act as a distributional channel, which has a form of different purposes, right? And remember, if you really look at it, if the branch is physically present, they gain and 3 times more assets under management than where they don't. Further, it gives the most important aspect of trust in bank businesses, because branches there, so they have identified basically they have a trust, because physically presence is important, right? Now say Bank of Ceylon, they have around 500 odd branches. The asset base is wide because you have more number of branches, so asset base increase. And through the bank branches provide an opportunity for bank to show that they understand their customers' plight and are committed to support them through this pandemic crisis. Now think about the situation. Now we have given moratoriums and all. If bank branches are not there, how can we support the customers? Through the branches, you can support the customer at this difficult times. We need to understand. Now, clients will remember for a long time how they have treated during such bad times. If the branches are not there, how banks support customers? So building trust and confidence relationship is a paramount importance to any bank. Now there is a bank, digital first bank. They said they lost lot of customer sentiment during pandemic because they don't have a branch. So one digital first bank, and they not in a position to address the customer sentiment because they don't have a branch, right? So branch, so one of the reason we need to have a branch. Now in this pandemic environment, a lot of bank staff are relearning or getting used to work from home. Now you see a lot of this pandemic environment, a lot of bank staff are relearning of getting used to work from home. That's a good thing. Now, but remember the Bank of England, that means the state bank, I mean the like Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the Bank of England is the main bank. The chief economist, what he said recently, lockdown arrangement benefited some, but not all workers. Work from home is, what he says, is damaging the creative potential of the kids, right? And remember that, because if you work together with social group, your brain creative potential increase. If you work at home, and they have said the creative potential of his comes down, right? Remember, that's a bad side of work at home, branchless, right? Okay, and remember, and another important thing, human have one inherent competitive advantage over machines. Now, of course, we like to deal with people. Everybody's like with feeling and share feelings. And when customers need support, they generally look for empathy, right? And this is where the branch can shine. The problem is most branches are not set up to that focus on empathy. So the important aspect with the customers need support, and branch will be there, look for their empathy. So branch can take advantage of that, right? That's the important thing. And also remember that technology is driving more self-service options in branches, right? And having massive impact, a uh, massive impact on how branch staff interact with customers. So these two closely interconnected. So the branch supported with technology, right? And it is a determine the fate and future of the brick and a mortar channel in banking. So what we look at today, and we need to have a balance between people and technology, and can remain productive the weapons. So 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 what the final thing we can say, right? It's like a love affair. So we can make love through the phone or digitally, but you won't feel it. No? So once you meet, talk, whisper, don't only really, really the affections taking place. Otherwise, your love is not really impacted, right? Branch also like that. People like to go to the branch. People not talk about their financial life than any other things, because they want to see their FD certificates and things like that. So both are important. So what we discuss, branches also play an important role. So we need to support with technologically uh, self-service options, right? So that's the argument. So we discuss importance of branches. We discuss the importance of the branchless. So you need to select whether you need to branch or we don't want to branch, right? So that is what you call uh, future of uh, future of branch bankers, right? I There are some advantages and disadvantages of uh, branches. Future of bank branches. We discuss the positive side as well. We discuss the negative sides, and we discuss how it imposed to view. So uh, I think with this point we have just come to a end of this my sessions, 2 day sessions, where we have discussed all the things, basically four important things, that is clients confidence management, ethics, importance of branches, and industry knowledge, how it is important for you, your branch, and, we discuss some ethics, ethical issues, how important to carry it out your banking business. Right. So with this, thank you. So I think so we have just covered enough for your branch operation, but the final expectation of this section to improve your knowledge about your banking industry, improve your competence, and how can you use this knowledge in bank branch operations. I hope I have done something for you to think. Which it is not a textbook, it is not a textbook stuff. It is a more on a practical things. So, so there may be a one question coming from this area. So, thank you. Uh, and if you have any clarification, if you want to find it out, you can just call me on 0777864 or you can just send me an email, uh, jagat.jkg@gmail.com, jagat.jkg@gmail.com, and we'll see you with any other subjects. Thank you very much for listening to today sessions. Thank you very much.